Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 26 June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China is asserting its economic influence on the world stage, with Premier Li Qiang touting the nation's economy as a source of global growth and opportunity at the World Economic Forum in Tianjin. The forum highlighted AI, energy transition, and China's economic strategies. Domestic demand remains a key focus, with economists emphasizing the need for increased income. China is also making significant strides in AI, where companies like Alibaba and Tencent are vying for dominance, leveraging the country's data infrastructure, supply chain, and vast market. Further demonstrating technological prowess, Pan Jianwei announced the development of a high-orbit quantum satellite aimed at establishing a global quantum network. Xiaomi is launching its first SUV, and SF Holding plans to raise $752 for international logistics and technology R&D. China's diplomatic efforts are also expanding, as evidenced by hosting defense ministers from Iran and Russia to promote the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a counterweight to Western influence. During the meetings, Defense Minister Deng Jun criticized hegemony. Foreign Minister Wang Yi urged increased mutual trust between China and the EU amidst trade tensions. Despite China issuing rare earth export licenses to European companies, these materials remain a key point of discussion for EU leaders. China has also cautioned the Philippines against hosting a missile system. Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong's recent visit to China underscores Southeast Asian countries' commitment to multilateralism. Furthermore, China is reportedly strengthening its public health emergency law and considering sealing records of minor offenses. Concerns are mounting in the United States regarding China's rapid advancements in military technology, particularly in space. Turning to the United States, anxieties are growing about China's military capabilities in space, with USSF Commander General Stephen Whiting expressing concern over Beijing's growing space-based kill chain capabilities. A U.S. general stated that China is moving breathtakingly fast in space military tech, posing strategic threats. Domestically, the U.S. is also focusing on alleged Chinese influence, with a new indictment against Linda Sun, a former New York official, for alleged kickbacks related to healthcare contracts. In the European Union, trade tensions with China are a primary concern, specifically regarding rare earth export. While China has begun issuing export licenses, the EU seeks a more structural solution for stable access to these critical materials. Rare earths are a key agenda item for EU leaders ahead of a summit with China. NATO has shelved plans to open a liaison office in Tokyo, exposing divisions over confronting China. The Philippines has received a warning from China about the potential hosting of US missile systems, which China views as a provocation. Vietnam is experiencing a decrease in durian exports to China due to stricter sanitation checks at the border. Finally, in Iran, defense cooperation with China is growing, while Chinese observers are raising concerns about global security threats following Israel's alleged infiltration of Iranian intelligence. Israel's ongoing conflict with Palestine, particularly in Gaza, remains a critical international issue. Israeli gunfire near UN aid trucks in Gaza led to at least 21 deaths and many injuries. The United Nations reports a rise in preventable diseases in Gaza, blaming the Israeli blockade for restricting essential resources like fuel, medical supplies, and water. Aid sites in Gaza, supported by Israel, allegedly create dangerous conditions for Palestinians amidst the ongoing hostilities, with hundreds reportedly killed near these hubs. Israel has reportedly stopped allowing aid into northern Gaza, but continues to permit it into the south, after images of masked individuals circulated. Israeli media faces accusations of amplifying war rhetoric and downplaying the suffering in Gaza. Turning to relations with Iran, Defense Minister Katz has stated that Israel possesses a green light from the U.S. to conduct further attacks should Iran advance its nuclear program. Reports suggest that Israel launched attacks from within Iran using drones and missiles, contributing to the start of the war. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu believes that the outcome of the war with Iran presents peace opportunities for Israel. In the Pacific, most governments continue to align with Israel amidst uncertainty in the Middle East. The U.S. has approved $30 for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an Israel-backed aid group, criticized for potentially exposing Gazans to danger. The EU is calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, but has not taken any action against Israel, while Irish leader Michael Martin has voiced criticism of Europe's inaction regarding the situation. Finally, ballet star Valery Panov, who fought to leave the USSR to move to Israel with his wife Galina Rogozina, has died at 87. His struggle became a Cold War symbol. Mexico is contending with a multifaceted crisis encompassing violent crime, strained international relations, and environmental disputes. A tragic mass shooting in Guanajuato State during a St. John the Baptist celebration led to 12 deaths, underscoring the ongoing security challenges. Simultaneously, President Claudia Sheinbaum has sharply criticized U.S. sanctions targeting Mexican banks accused of money laundering, demanding concrete evidence to substantiate the claims. The U.S. alleges that 3 Mexican financial entities aided the fentanyl trade through illicit financial activities. However, Mexico's president has neither confirmed nor denied these accusations. Separately, environmental activists in Mexico have claimed that debris from a SpaceX explosion, which landed in the country, caused marine life deaths. SpaceX refutes this claim, asserting the safety and regulatory compliance of its operation. The United States has levied sanctions against Mexican financial institutions suspected of involvement in money laundering and facilitating the fentanyl trade. These sanctions have triggered a strong rebuke from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, who has demanded that the U.S. provide evidence supporting the allegations against the banks. Turning to New Mexico, the state is currently managing a measles outbreak within a county detention facility, highlighting public health concerns. India now requires U.S. visa applicants to disclose their social media information from the past 5 years. India is also considering pushing for Pakistan's return to the FATF grey list. Google Trends data indicates a surge in interest regarding flight anxiety within India, possibly influenced by the recent Air India plane crash. Flash floods in northern India, triggered by heavy rains, caused 3 deaths and left at least a dozen missing. In international sports news, Kirsty Coventry, the IOC's new president, has paused India's bid to host the 2036 Olympic Games. Canada. In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is facing increasing pressure to address the housing crisis, with critics suggesting bolder policy interventions are needed to curb rising prices. Canada is also grappling with the implications of a recent cyber attack targeting government systems, raising concerns about national security. Furthermore, discussions are ongoing regarding potential reforms to Canada's electoral system to enhance voter representation. United States. Across the border in the United States, the Federal Reserve is closely monitoring inflation data as it considers future interest rate adjustments. The U.S. government is also engaged in negotiations with several countries to address trade imbalances and promote economic growth. Additionally, debates continue regarding immigration policy reform and border security measures. United Kingdom. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom is navigating the complexities of post-Brexit trade relations, seeking to strengthen ties with both European and global partners. The UK government is also implementing new measures to tackle climate change, including investments in renewable energy and green technologies. Meanwhile, the National Health Service, NHS, is facing ongoing challenges related to funding and staffing shortages. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has leveled accusations of genocide against Israel concerning its actions in Gaza. Despite this strong stance, Sanchez remains opposed to increasing defense spending, setting him apart from many NATO allies. Further, Spain has voiced criticism of the European Union for its lack of action regarding a trade agreement with Israel, specifically referencing human rights issues in Gaza. Shifting focus to domestic matters, Spain's constitutional court has largely validated the amnesty law benefiting Catalan separatists, although the direct repercussions for Carles Puigdemont are still unclear. Indonesia's search and rescue teams have located the body of a Brazilian woman who tragically fell from Mount Rinjani. This incident has amplified concerns about safety protocols within the country's burgeoning adventure tourism industry, especially after several accidents involving international travelers. Adding to these concerns, a high-ranking official in Bali has publicly advocated for the prompt deportation of disruptive foreign nationals. The official cited increasing criminal activity perpetrated by foreigners and the corresponding damage to Bali's international image as the primary reasons for this stance. Russia recently engaged in a prisoner exchange with Ukraine, following talks held in Turkey. Separately, Russia's ambassador to Japan is set to attend the A-bomb ceremony in Nagasaki. He will not, however, be present at the Hiroshima event. The NATO summit revealed differing views between the United States and European countries on Russia's military objectives. Ukraine's interests took a back seat. The focus shifted towards ensuring ongoing backing from U.S. President Trump. Vietnam has abolished the death penalty for 8 offenses, a legislative change that may impact the case of Truong My Lan, the real estate tycoon, recently condemned to death for financial fraud. The country is also actively addressing economic pressures in anticipation of the end of a pause on U.S. tariffs, employing diversification strategies to mitigate any potential fallout. Adding to internal challenges, public confidence in food safety has been severely shaken by a scandal involving the fraudulent sale of animal feed, oil as cooking oil. Global affairs. The concept of like-minded countries is evolving. It now includes nations with similar interests, regardless of political ideologies. This signals a shift beyond traditional Western partnerships in international alliances. United States. The U.S. economy saw a contraction of 0.5% in the first quarter. This decline, spanning January to March, exceeded initial projections. A surge in imports contributed to this downturn. Speculation suggests this import increase was driven by anticipating upcoming tariffs. Kenya is grappling with widespread unrest as 16 lives have been lost during nationwide protests. These demonstrations, fueled by grievances over police brutality, government corruption, and perceived poor governance, saw thousands flood the streets. The protests coincided with the anniversary of the 2024 anti-tax demonstrations, turning violent as police responded with live rounds, tear gas, and rubber bullets. Papua New Guinea has declared a national HIV crisis due to a recent spike in infections, prompting urgent action. Building on regional cooperation, Papua New Guinea and Bougainville have signed the Melanesian Agreement, a move seen as potentially advancing Bougainville's independence aspirations. In economic news, Papua New Guinea views the potential acquisition of Australian oil and gas giant Santos Limited, backed by the UAE, with optimism anticipating potential benefits to its energy sector. Peru is witnessing a troubling trend as criminal gangs, intensify their extortion activities against private schools, particularly those in impoverished areas. This surge in crime began during the COVID-19 pandemic and continues to plague the nation. Ecuador is dealing with the aftermath of gang leader José Adolfo Macias's escape from prison, also known as Fito, whose actions sparked significant violence. President Noboa has announced Fito's planned extradition to the United States, where he faces drug trafficking and weapons smuggling allegations. Moving south, South Africa is mourning over 100 deaths, including that of a 12-month-old infant, as a result of severe flooding in the Eastern Cape province. In the Central African Republic, a school experienced a tragic explosion and subsequent stampede, resulting in at least 29 student fatalities. Turning to Colombia, President Gustavo Petro has enacted a new labor law, increasing overtime pay and limiting the use of short-term contract workers. In New Zealand, psychedelic therapy has been approved, with Dr. Cameron Lacey now authorized to prescribe psilocybin for depression. Separately, former MP Brendan Horan is considering running for a position on the Wakatni Council. Shifting focus to India, the Ministry of External Affairs has expressed a willingness to discuss ongoing issues with Bangladesh. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs will hold a special meeting with experts to address these matters. Malaysia is seeing fallout from a leader of the Islamist PAH party who has been condemned for a racist post-targeting a Chinese general, while the murder of a student in Cyberjaya has raised concerns about safety in the tech hub. Greece is battling a large wildfire near Athens, with evacuation alerts issued for residents in 5 settlements amidst a heatwave. At a NATO summit held in the Netherlands, President Trump praised allies for increasing their defense spending, while Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is facing criticism for not attending. Across the globe in Saudi Arabia, Cristiano Ronaldo has extended his contract with Al Nassr until 2027, as a U.S. base in the country is expanding to become a supply hub intended to counter Iran, according to a New York Times analysis. In Canada, sandwiches in Lloydminster, a city spanning 2 provinces, have become a focal point in discussions about domestic trade barriers that Prime Minister Mark Carney aims to dismantle. Fiji's government has accused a shipping company of violating maritime and environmental obligations, emphasizing its commitment to preventing Fijian ports from being used as dumping grounds. In Serbia, several individuals have been arrested on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government ahead of an anti-government rally in Belgrade. The intersection of entertainment and global politics arose in Sudan, where a Super Bowl halftime performer was arrested for allegedly displaying a Sudanese and Palestinian flag during Kendrick Lamar's performance. In the Philippines, AI-generated fake interviews presenting arguments for and against the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte have been widely circulated online. Haiti's Tabar Hospital in Port-au-Prince is providing sanctuary and medical care for survivors of trauma amid ongoing violence. The Trump administration is planning to deport migrant Kilma Abrego for a second time, although he will not be deported to El Salvador. Palau is preparing to host the 2025 Pacific Mini-Games, set to feature participation from 24 countries across 12 sports. Germany is actively seeking recruits to expand its military forces, but faces cultural resistance rooted in its historical context. Thailand is preparing for potential unrest due to upcoming trials and planned protests. Concluding with the United States, Zohran Mamdani's New York mayoral win has drawn criticism from Kangana Ranaul and Congress's Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Singhvi humorously suggested that Mamdani's comments benefit Pakistan's public relations, while Ranaut questioned his Hindu identity. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.